Okay, je crois que... Good evening, everybody. We just let a few minutes for the last 3 persons who would like to connect. Just technical constraint. Okay, so good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first event of the club Essec Sustainable Business. Just an information at first, this event will be registered and be shared further on the tech platform and YouTube platform. I'm very pleased to welcome you. Our group aims to promote social and climate consideration to decision maker without compromising on business efficiency. As you know, the world economic system is currently going through tremendous change, sustainable development being an axis among other drivers. Our club, more than a think tank, is tend to be a do tank, to use your skills, expertise from diverse industry experiences, and you as member to translate the wishful thinking into a concrete action. So together we can be actor to this of this change. First, by building our awareness and knowledge of sustainability, and we can influence that the main point and main aim or cooperate and make all compare more conscious of their impact on society and environment. So today, our club counts 300 members, up to 500 with the bridge we have, meaning the alumni from Mannheim School. So you are welcome to join through the Essec alumni website. So don't hesitate to activate your account and to be able to be part of this story with Essec. And we insist that the goal of the club, as already mentioned, is to be a do tank and be organized by subgroups specific to an industry or to a particular topic. So we could summarize this in one sentence: how to promote the business efficiency while reducing the global impact on your society and your environment. So we have not so much time with so interesting topic. I invite to begin the first event, finance and sustainability condition. And I let the floor to Caroline. Thank you, Caroline, who will drive the discussion and invite each of you. And I invite you, to let your the chat, and we have with Jerome, we'll to share this comment with us. So I wish you a nice exchange and go on. Thank you.
Thank you, Stéphane. Hello, everybody. Nice to welcome you tonight. I see that everybody has been quite well organized and most microphones are shut down, which is nice. You can ask your questions at any time in the chat, and Jérôme will raise them with me along the discussions with our speakers. So indeed, whether the banking and finance industry and services and sustainability can fit together is a very hot topic that often gives way to passionate debates. We will see it tonight. And well, the news coverage is particularly rich in the matter. Sometimes contradictory, some say it's moving on, some say it's too slow. Either finance is conscious of its role and taking its responsibilities, or finance doesn't care. That's what we can hear. Besides, we can see that responsible financial products are appearing or even blooming at the moment. They can be green, social, but in the end, the question remains, how green and social are they in reality? So we are going tonight to try and answer some of those questions, try to see a little bit more clearly in the current status and in the perspective on this topic. And to help us with this, we are lucky to gather 3 experts of CSR topics in the banking and finance sector. So I will introduce them briefly, and then we'll switch to the questions and exchanges. So ladies first, let me introduce Sophie Flak, who is the managing partner CSR and digital of Eurazeo. Eurazeo being a leader global investment group with almost 19 billion euros in assets under management, invested in up to 430 companies. And as stated in your company purpose, your commitment to these companies is based on long term, and it encompasses business development and CSR together. So Sophie, after that, you will have the opportunity to correct if needed. Just one illustration that struck me. You have launched recently, if I'm not mistaken, a 20-year CSR program. So indeed something quite outstanding and long-term commitment. And we hope you will tell us more about all of this.
With pleasure.
Then, great. Then let me introduce you Laurent Babiquian, who is the Europe Director for Capital Markets of CDP. CDP is a non-for-profit charity that runs the global disclosure system for both public and private stakeholders in order to manage their environmental impacts. It is a reference in environmental reporting, aiming at, I quote, a thriving economy that works for people and planet in the long term. So defining and implementing the right shared tools and KPIs of measurements is indeed a hot topic for sustainable finance, and we will get back to it together with Laurent. One last point about Laurent's introduction, 2 hashtags that he quite likes, build forward better and responsible capitalism, so quite meaningful and ambitious. We will talk about that. And last but not least, we have with us Sébastien Mandron, who is CSR Director of Worldline. Worldline being a global leader in payment and transaction services, describing itself as a pioneer in the digital revolution, offering secure and high-performing platforms. And Worldline also stresses in its company purpose a commitment to sustainable economic growth, respectful of the environment, accessible to as many as possible, while supporting societal transformations. So we have the right people here tonight to discuss these topics. We are very happy to have all of you with us. And now let's start the discussion. My first question to the 3 of you is, in your opinion, what is the role that the banking and finance sector should play when it comes to sustainability, so in its environment and social dimensions, and what are the major stakes on the agenda? So as our time is quite hectic, I propose that Sophie starts, followed by Laurent, and then Sébastien.
So thank you, Caroline, for your kind introduction, and I'm very happy to be with you all tonight. So considering that the house is burning, to be really direct and straight to the point, definitely one of the key role finance in general, and well, you understand I work in private equity, but we're going to discuss finance on a more broader approach. I believe that we can be part of the solution, and what we can play an acceleration role if we want to move towards 2-degree compatible economy. To give you a very concrete example, over the last 3 years, there has been still nearly 750 billions of dollars over the last 3 years who have financed coal factories, coal power plants. We know that if we want to keep the temperature below 2 degrees, which is going to be a huge challenge, we definitely need to move out of fossil fuel. I'm just picking this very topic, which is climate. Of course, there are many other topics on the agenda. But when you want to make a connection between what could be the role of finance in supporting the transition, we directly understand that if the finance industry start to shuffle funding from fossil fuel as an example, but I would say any kind of business which contributes to worsening the climate or the global economy or people conditions, we can be part of the solution. And finance has this lever effect, both in creating wealth, but can also have and can also leverage this lever effect for climate as well as for human rights. And the question is, how do we make it happen? So of course, this topic has been taken into account more and more, but definitely today, we're starting December 2020, we know it's not enough. So we definitely need to accelerate.
Thank you, Sophie. Laurent, would you like to say a word?
Just to follow up on what Sophie said, I mean, just it's always good to give some figures. Between 1860 and 2019, the average temperature on the globe rose by 1.1 degrees. And we have now the ambition not to do 2 degrees, but 1.5 degrees, because at 2 degrees, it's going to be catastrophic. So the latest IPCC report is now strongly guiding and urging us to do 1.5 degrees by 2050. So it means that between 2019 and 2050, we have 0.4 degrees. And if we're going on business as usual right now, we will do 3.2 degrees. So more than 2 times what we should do to try to be safe, because even at 1.5 degrees, there will be some problem. So yes, the house is burning. It's burning with kerosene and with all fossil product that you want, that you can find. So finance has, I mean, each of us, we have our role to achieve the Paris Agreement as a citizen, as companies, as city, state, and region, but also as investor. The investor can, as it was said, reallocate the funding, and they can decide where they put the money. They can walk the talk. The problem is that there are lots of talk now, but not that much action from investors. And especially the very large investors, they are talking a lot, but in the reality, they are not doing anything. So I'm thinking about US investor. So yeah, finance can, when they lend money, when it lends money, or when it invests in capital, or when it finances projects, infrastructure, finance can put some condition to the loan or to the investment. And what I would add, I'm thinking about the sustainability linked loans, whose market is exploding now, is every year multiplied by 2 or 3 in terms of volume. It's, I think, much more powerful than a green bond. We can discuss this later. And I think that, yes, I mean, that's it. Then we discuss that we need the right tool to be able to understand things, the right alphabet, the right grammar, probably talking about the taxonomy and the ESG reporting standard, because we need to align all these and to speak the same language. Another thing that I would like to say to end this part is it's never good to divest first. It's much better to engage with your investee company and to make them change. If they don't understand this, then you divest. But it has to be the last resort solution.
Thank you, Laurent. Very clear. Sébastien, we would also like to hear you on this point.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to start with the good news, because you put a lot of bad news on the screen. So I'm going to take a good one, which is that this year we should be compliant with the COP21 commitment, which is to reduce the CO2 emission by 4%. Okay, 4%. It looks very, very small numbers. And this year we should be able to reach it due to the COVID. Okay, so just to imagine, in fact, the level of disturbance that we need to reach just to be compliant, not to make extra effort. Okay. And what the COP21 is telling you is that you need to do it every year. Okay. And that gives you the impact that we need to manage. Okay. So this year, in fact, is the first year that you can say you can use it as a baseline. Okay. Okay. So no, but that's a good news because we speak a lot since the Paris COP21, but it's the first one we did it. After you are going to tell me that it's not us, it's the virus, but let's take it as a positive point. So just to highlight that making this effort, if there is no virus, that means that it's a strong impact, in fact, in the business model. And what is sure is that the role of the banking, as highlighted by Sophie, is really to accelerate, in fact, those transformations. And like Laurent mentioned, is by putting, in fact, the funding, in fact, in the right business model. Because, of course, the impact can be dramatic for a lot of industries. We already saw in the past months the impact, in fact, on the airplane companies, in the transportation. So all of these companies that are business model funded on carbon industry will no more be sustainable at all. Okay, so that means that there is plenty of business model that need to be transformed. Okay, and the role of the finance industry is definitely to ease this switch and to be able to make it happen, in fact, in the proper timing. So this is a very important role of the finance industry to ensure the finance transition to be able to meet the target that has been set up.
Thank you. Very clear. So some common statements in your answers there. I hear that there is a role to play from finance, a strong one. I also feel from your answers that finance is maybe not playing it fully. Yeah, let's take fully at the moment. What could be done so that all the key players play their roles fully and within the time frame that is needed, given the urgency?
Maybe I would like to go back to a point that Laurent mentioned. There is an easy way to accelerate towards the transition, is to only invest and support, I would say, companies which are by design solution ready. And at Eurazeo, we do believe that it's not the solution, because you might get solution-ready companies. Let me state a very obvious example. It could be, renewable energy, but you are going to stop supporting, to stop financing huge chunks of the economy, and you can create a social disaster. So the question we have, and I totally support the way Laurent was bringing it, is how do you drive transformation within the business that you do finance? And I do believe we have the levers. So I'm going to give you a very concrete example on how we see our role. So at Eurazeo, we have a very clear positioning. We want to be the investor of choice of the transition. There is a huge fade on impact investing, and I do believe it's relevant, but I would say it's kind of the easy way, and the hard way, but the needed way, is transform the economy in order to make it climate low carbon ready and human right. I wouldn't say ready, but definitely more with more performance in terms of human rights. And the way we do it at Eurazeo is, of course, we look at the business a company is operating in, and we ask us the question, is this business still going to be relevant in 20 years? I believe it might be surprising for you to hear somebody coming from a finance company talking about 20 years, which seems to be pretty long term. But just to decode how we think, we invest for a 5-7 years period. We need to exit. So we need to make sure that the company that is going to take our place will foresee some performance in the next 7 years and again and again. So that's why our financing investment, as a matter of fact, it's more 15 to 20 years. So first of all, we ask ourselves, is this business still going to be relevant in the next 15 or 20 years? And if yes, do we agree, do we have a shared understanding with the management of the company that the business needs to undergo a transition, and we are going to define what is the transition? And if the answer is yes, then we are going to move forward. Often, the cases where we don't invest is because management is going to tell us, no, sustainability is a non-topic, or climate is a non-topic, or human rights is a non-topic. And we believe they are not fit to get our funding because we are not going to be aligned from a strategic point of view. And to give you a very concrete example of what we do, as a matter of fact, we are a shareholder of a chemical company. And this chemical company produces 3 million tons of carbon every year. It's in Europe. So as you can imagine, they pay carbon quotas to the European Union. They are the prime manufacturer of components for aspirin, for example. Aspirin is still going to be relevant in the next 15, 20 years. So how do we decarbonize this business? And since investment, using 3 key levers, which was, changing the energy mix, and I let you imagine how complex it can be to switch to renewable energy for huge chemical plants. So switching to renewable energy, reviewing processes and embedding some circular economy in the processes, so the waste of a process can become the prime product to another process, and we reviewed all processes. And of course, we did some diversification, product diversification, to go to low carbon product in the pharmaceutical industry. We managed to decrease carbon intensity by 30% per product ton and in EBITDA. And our target is to fully exit coal. So I'm sorry, Sébastien, Laurent, you are going to have a heart attack. We are still using coal, and all of you, but we plan to fully exit coal by 2024.
Yeah,
and secretly, we plan to achieve it faster than that. What does this require? It requires a management team that has a very clear vision of the target. It does also require some financial partners who are going to fund this transformation, because it's huge capex that we're talking about. But our vision is that during our investment horizon, so it's going to be, so far it's been over 4 years, what is the fair share of the company transformation we must finance? And as a matter of fact, you can imagine the dozens of millions of euros we have invested in order to transform this company and to make it less carbon intense. But we believe strongly that there is going to be a prime at exit, because we will have created one of the low carbon chemical operators, chemical and pharmaceutical operators in Europe. So it's feasible, but it requires, vision, rigor, discipline, and fundings.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree, Sophie, that there is no worries about that. You need to finance the brown industry to make them become green, and they need to be funded. But they need to be funded with KPIs and with the will from the management, the top management, to do so. I would like to share. I'm not super good at all this stuff. I will see if I can share my screen. Can I share my screen? Yes. I would like to share my screen, because I would like to show. No, I don't know how it works. Okay. Oh, yeah, here. Does it work?
Not yet.
Yeah, that's,
now,
for example, for the oil and gas industry. Can you see my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have, for the oil and gas industry, we have the benchmark to follow. The name of this benchmark is a Danish company called Ørsted. Ørsted was 20 years ago an oil and gas company, publicly owned by the government of Denmark, and in 20 years became one of the top players in renewable energy in the world. And it went on the market in 2017. So you see the graphic of Ørsted compared to Total, BP, and Shell. And I was looking today at the graphic of ExxonMobil, who announced yesterday that they are going to make 20 billion of write-off, but still pay a high dividend. They increase the dividend for the shareholder, which is, I mean, at one stage, an economic nonsense. And I don't understand how a CFO can do that. Ørsted is doing just great. In the US, you have Next Era, which is a pure renewable energy player that were not in the past oil and gas, but now Next Era has a market valuation larger than ExxonMobil. So you see that all those oil and gas are going down, and the market valuation would go down with the stranded asset. We all know that, but still you have those companies using billions in capex because they believe that the oil peak will probably be in 2030 and 2040. So there is still money to do. So we have the benchmark. So we need to use them. And I don't have the benchmark for the coal industry, unfortunately, but I would love to have it. And probably we will have one of them, because if they don't do that, they are dead. So, and another thing that I wanted to say is that there is a lot of money on the market. It's insane. Central banks are creating money out of thin air. Problem when you do that is that you don't take risk into account anymore. You play at the casino, and it gives the valuation that you have on the market. So Sébastien said, yeah, great. COVID, we see exactly what needs to be done. It's more 7 to 8% per year that we should do until 2050 to be in line with 1.5 degree, not 2 degree. So basically we should have a COVID every year. I don't want to have a COVID every year. I'm not interested by that. I prefer to go out and to meet people and instead of staying at home. So, but he's right. This is what we should do. So imagine what it means in the normal business as usual real life, what we should do. We should basically transform everything. We should also transform the way we eat and the way we move. So in the market, the capital market, you definitely need to bring money to the people who are bad today to make them move towards becoming green. And those people, and I agree with Sophie, I think there is a lot of money to do there if you do so, and for the exit, and you need to another thing that also needs to be done on the market. I mean, it's more larger than bank and finance, capital market. We need to have all the tools of the market, the vanilla products, applied to ESG. And in the ESG, I would focus on the E part, because the E part is the most material for an investor today. And we don't have this. We don't have options. We don't have swaps. We don't have swaptions. We don't have futures linked to ESG. We start having every day, maybe one announcement, but we need to have this as like the vanilla product. And because if you do that, you will enable the liquidity to shift, and you will still have speculators speculating on green, on transition, or what, taking long or short position against that. You will still have hedgers, you will still have market makers, but they will have the tool to do that and to unlock the money which is sitting in brown asset to go to green asset.
Thank you, Laurent. Sébastien, if you would like to react or complete, and then we will take some questions from the audience. We cannot hear you, or I cannot.
Yeah, sorry, you can hear me now?
Great. Yes, it's perfect.
Yeah, so I started with the good news, so I'm going to continue with my good news. So the second good news is, as you can see there, in fact, the competition has been engaged between companies on sustainability, meaning that now we are comparing companies through CDP, through rating agencies, regarding not only on their profitability, on their market share and so on, but on their sustainability level. And this is, in fact, one of the best levers you can expect, because maybe some of you already saw in the newspaper 2 weeks ago. Alors, it was in French newspaper, Le Point N Challenge, where those newspapers are not dedicated to investors or big companies, but dedicated to citizens, where they just put on the table what are the best people in climate change, in the climate fight strategy, let's put it that way, or what are the companies that are more sustainable. And as you can imagine, is that for the citizens, they say, oh, it looks interesting. There is good people and there are bad people. So it makes something happen in the head of the citizens. But what's happened in the business side, what's happened is that all the people that were not properly rated, in fact, on those ratings, they take their phone and they start to understand how they have been evaluated. And they discover, in fact, what was the story and what they missed. Meaning that they were badly rated on what they said to the rating agencies. They said, oh guys, it was very useful because, you know, now I'm going to see my boss to tell him that if we are badly rated, it's because we are not doing the right thing, so we need to accelerate. Okay, and that's one of the topics that we see more and more. Huh? So that means that we have around sustainability experts able to manage those topics, able to put pressure on the companies. And what is still missing is the citizen view, which is not fully aware about the story, about the key topics, and those people are not yet in a situation to put pressure. Okay, so if I would like to give you another example, the COP21 is telling you that we need to divide by 3 the CO2 emission. It's a big number, but like me, you never see any CO2 emission, so you do not have a clue. So you can take a car, okay? The car is consuming generating CO2 emission due to the weight of the car. So that means that you divide the size of the car by 3, okay? So all the big car around 1.6 kilogram or 2 tons of weight does not fly anymore, meaning that the size of the car is 500 kilogram, okay, which is, let's call a Twingo, okay, or a very small Twingo. This is what we are highlighting there, okay? So again, in fact, by making people aware, they can challenge, in fact, business model. They can change their habit and they can accelerate the transformation.
Thank you. Jérôme, I think you have some questions for our speakers.
Yes, indeed. So we received a few questions from the audience. A few questions for you, Sophie. First question, so is the sustainability question more sensitive for the new generation of top managers, or do you also see more experienced managers being active on this topic? Yeah.
Sophie, you want to speak?
Unmute.
Sophie, you're muted still, I think.
I'm going to speak if I'm the only one to be able to speak. So I think there is the management. The pressure is currently coming from the young people. The feedback I got from the companies is people are coming back to me. They tell me, Sébastien, what we are doing in Worldline, in fact, are quite great because now we have people telling us that they are going to come in that company because they have identified what we are doing in terms of CSR. Okay, so it's more at this moment the first feedback I got that means that people now aim to choose the company regarding what they are doing in terms of CSR. And what is clear and what is obvious is that people now would like to refuse to join company working in tobacco industry, working in oil company, okay, or maybe in gambling. So that means that there are people that are in plain industry. So there are now people that start to challenge their own choice regarding the company for which they want to work.
I must say that I share this point of view, especially in the new generation. There is a seek for purpose. People want to have a purposeful life, and it's not only at home, it's not only on your personal activities, it's also at work. And we see, you know, this wave of purpose-driven companies, and be it young, you know, new companies, be it former companies who are working on their purpose and trying to make it meaningful. As we see, and that's to answer the question, what is really interesting is that I've been working in sustainability for over 20 years now, and reluctant people still exist, but they are lesser and lesser. And I believe that they carry the risk to become obsolete. So definitely, you know, executives who do not understand the CSR agenda are plainly and simply making a strategic mistake. So this is why, you know, it's becoming rare, really rare to see management teams saying, no, sustainability is not a topic. It was still quite common 15 years ago. Today, it's more like, wow, there are still some people like that. And it's more, you know, an amazement to see them. And definitely we're not going to work with them.
Okay, thank you. Caroline, do we have time for some other questions, or would you like to continue?
Well, I propose that we take the questions because that's the good point to answer the audience.
Sure. Maybe for you, Laurent, a question about the profit. So is there any funding strategy to put less pressure on the projects in order to avoid excessive consumptions, which is somehow at the root of today's problem? That means that sometimes companies may take bad decisions and end up promoting consumption or not relevant solution when they put under pressure the investors in a rapidly moving market.
Sorry, I did not understand the question.
So basically the question is about the funding strategy. So how should company put less pressure on project and try to reduce the waste? Maybe I can try to unmute
the person who has the question, maybe.
The person who has a
Yes,
question,
maybe.
yes.
Maybe, yeah. So who has the question?
Yeah, otherwise we come back to it later.
Maybe if the person can send another, well, a complement to the question just to make it a bit more explicit for us. And in between we can take another one.
Yes.
If you have one. Otherwise,
yeah,
I can go on. I have
some. Yes, we have another one
okay.
for Sophie, and I guess all of the speakers can answer, of course. A question about the green bonds. Green bonds, to which extent are they game changer?
In a few minutes.
Laurent, you want to take it?
I mean, I can start answering that. They would be a game changer if they really walk the talk and they really invest in energy efficiency or low carbon products or renewable energy, and without offsetting. So and we saw it. Normally it should be audited. I mean, not normally, yeah, every year it should be audited, but we should be really cautious about that. I would favor, and we start seeing that, the sustainability linked bond, which is more funding that funds generally the company. It can be the working capital requirements or OPEX or CAPEX of the company, and whose interest rate is linked to achieving KPIs that are defined by the parties. So it's not only I lend you money to do this, I lend money to the whole company, but the whole company, the interest rate is linked to KPI, so the whole company has to change, not only a part of the company. So, and if the company is successful in the KPI, it can be decarbonized by that much percent, the whole business. It can be an increase of an ESG rating score. It can be to ask the company to become SBT approved, science-based target approved, many conditions, but the whole company is moving toward this goal. And if they succeed, they pay less interest rates. If they don't succeed in the KPI, they pay more interest rate.
As a matter of fact, and sorry to interrupt, Laurent, we signed the first link loan for a buyout operation in France, and it's exactly the mechanism you're describing. So we have some very precise KPIs we need to achieve. They're going to be audited by statutory auditors on a yearly basis. And if we achieve it, we get, you know, better conditions. If we don't, we worsen our conditions. And we believe it's going to be super efficient, but it gets back to the question of the methodology. And Sébastien was touching upon that point as well. Green bonds, the intention is positive, but the methodology is definitely lacking. The methodology of, you know, how do you calculate the performance and how do you verify the performance? And if to go to Sebastian's points about Le Point rating, if I do encourage sustainability ratings because it does create momentum and it does create acceleration, I must say that I do strongly regret first the quality of the methodology, which is definitely lacking. I mean, who integrates such a percentage of an evaluation based on street people comments on such a technical topic? And if you compare to CDP, you know, we declare our performance to CDP for several years now. It's a thorough methodology. You know how you are evaluated and you know on what you need to progress. And to conclude on this point, I believe that there is definitely, it's time to get some strong, shared, agreed methodologies on measuring extra financial performance. You look at finance, it's clear. You don't have 10 definitions for EBITDA or EBIT or operations or turnover. In sustainability, scope 1 and 2 we agree upon, but there is still some flexibility. So scope 1 and 2 are the carbon emission equivalent of your energy usage, be it direct or indirect, but you still have some flexibility on your perimeter. So, and you go to scope 3 and you go to all the other criteria, you have dozens of methodologies and even regulations are conflicting and adding layers and layers and layers of KPI. So it's urgent time to agree on simple, effective standard to measure extra financial performance. I'm becoming a bit vocal because it's urgent. And once we will have the basis for clear performance measurement, then we will create strong conditions to drive progress and achieve the ambition we have.
Can I add something? So we need to have a common alphabet and a common grammar. And this is what the Action Plan Sustainable Finance of the EU is trying to achieve. So we have now an EU taxonomy that is going to be implemented in 2022. It's quite complex, but we all believe that it will be the reference worldwide. We can't have something in Europe that is not followed somewhere else, and we can't have something in Europe or something in China, in the US. It's totally different, because then the work for an investor will become really complicated. And what we have now is also a task force working under the DG FISMA at the EU level on ESG reporting standards. As Sophie said, in the financial world, you have IFRS, you have IASB, and there is a kind of common language. We don't have this, and it's a strategic and, I would say, geopolitical question. It is being played right now, and this task force, which is chaired by Patrick de Cambourg, is going to publish his first report at the end of January 2021 to design the framework of EU ESG reporting standard that should be adopted also by other parts. I'm thinking about in the US about SASB, about GRI in the Netherlands, CDSB integrated reporting. I don't want to enter too much into the detail, but it's moving quite quickly in this field. Last week you have SASB who merged with the integrated reporting, because they would like to impose the US standard to Europe, which is only single materiality, when in Europe you have double materiality. My company is emitting and have an impact, negative impact on climate change, but in return, the climate change has an impact on my company. This is what the EU is trying to deal with the EU taxonomy. So we will have that, the alphabet, the grammar. It's going to take another 2 to 3 years, but then the job of investors will be much easier to do. Yes.
Being a member of the task force, I can tell you that there is a lot of work to achieve what Laurent is talking about, but we are in the right direction. I totally.
So you are in the task force chaired by Patrick de Cambourg?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, we should maybe organize one session only on that for the Essec alumni.
Sure.
Okay, we note that for the for the next session, just to make sure, because not all of us are experts on the topic, to make sure that it's clear for everybody. The EU taxonomy, and you will correct me if I'm wrong, is the way to frame the market of green or sustainable financial products, and a tool to classify and enable comparability of sustainable financial instruments at a European level. And also, I think it's the basis for the European Green Label. Is that right?
It's a question?
Common standards. Yeah, just to explain for non-financial people what the taxonomy is in a few words.
Sophie, you want to?
Oh, it's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, Laurent.
No, I mean, it's a way that will enable an investor to know what's green in the percentage revenue of a company and what's not green. And in this, you know, you have a company with 30% green activities that is classified in an encyclopedia. You know, it's a very large condensed guidelines, and then what's not green, so is not classified, even though there's going to be probably a brown taxonomy because we need also to know what is not green. And then an investor would be, if he has to fulfill some requirements to be compliant with the Paris Agreement, will be able to say, in my portfolio, I have that much percentage of green activities, and potentially we will calculate the temperature of that with new tools, calculating the contradictory. So it's becoming quite technical, but grosso modo, it's the alphabets and saying that this activity will be green, this activity won't be green, and so on. Maybe Sophie, you can add something there.
But it's interesting to see the question, you know, about what is SASB, what is IRC, what is
voilà, c'est ça, on va pas rentrer dedans. Yeah, that's, yeah.
So you just need to understand, there is a huge list of acronyms, huge. They all represent organizations, and those organizations are pushing some tools and some grammar to evaluate whether a company is sustainable, yes or no. Some of them are going to be more environment oriented. Some of them are going to be more globally oriented. You know, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations are a more global framework. At the end of the day, it is a perfect illustration of what needs to stop. You know, we need to converge, and but of course, it's understandable. You know, it's a question of maturity, and we all know, and we see that in many markets, we see that in many industries, in many topics. There is a proliferation. So the proliferation is a sign of growing interest, and now there is a need for consolidation, and it's coming.
And if I add something there, because it's very important, Europe is leading on sustainability. Europe is doing directive regulations. In the countries, you have some laws which are obliging company to report, obliging investor to report, and it's becoming regulated. And this is why historically in Europe you had those non-financial data boutique developing quite well. And then the US understood that they were missing a train, and they started the US financial data house, the S&P, the Moody's, the MSCI, Morningstar, ISS, all those guys bought the European non-financial data boutique to buy this know-how, because they miss, and because they know that over time the ESG data will be much more important than the financial data. That's for sure. So what's interesting to notice now is that the Deutsche Börse is doing the exact opposite. Deutsche Börse bought ISS recently, who bought the knowledge in Europe of ESG by buying South Pole, one part of South Pole and Ocom, whatever. But then Deutsche Börse is buying back ISS to bring back the knowledge in Europe. So we see very clearly that there is a war on the ESG data between the Anglo-Saxon world and the European now. And honestly, we did the job to oblige people, so it would be naive not to do anything. And now we need to kind of control and take this business in Europe, because it's going to create jobs and everything.
And to give some color to what Laurent is talking about, I will just remind you what happened with Alstom. Alstom is pure economical war based on extra financial regulation about corruption. But it's just, how do I use a regulation tool to fulfill my economical war? And definitely Europe is in advance. And the thing is, and that's one of the topics we're also discussing in the task force and work group, is how do we cash in the unique competitive advantage extra financial is giving to our economy? Because you see it in your daily life. I don't know if, well, for those of you who are in France, we have a company which is called Fleury Michon. And you know, they make manufactured, well, they make processed food. I'm not saying I love processed food, but it was very interesting to see that they had a campaign about, we reduce preservative, we reduce this, we got rid of that, we got rid of that. At the end of the month, double-digit growth. So definitely the market is ready. The market is ready in many fields. You see Yuka. Yuka is also a rating app for you know, retail products. 19 million of users solely in France. So the market is ready. We need now, you know, to make a success of the last mile of this process. And how do we transform those KPIs into clear consumer benefits, be it in B2C, be it in B2B? Is it better for my health? Is it better for the planet? Let me give you a concrete example. Are you going to purchase a blouse which has made 1,000 of kilometers? Or are you going to purchase one which was maybe made, you know, closer to your home and made maybe from recycled products or from cotton grown in France? So we have the raw data. We need to be able to transform them into understandable, actionable info for consumers, because you've seen the discussion among us. It becomes super technical, super quickly, with acronyms, with this and that. And we need to make it, you know, user-friendly, to empower consumer and to create a competitive advantage, because European companies are far more advanced than most American or Asian companies.
Thank you for this. It makes it much more clear. Indeed. And as we are talking about the consumer, each of us, I would like to switch to one other dimension of finance and sustainability, or financial sector and sustainability. Maybe this point is more for Sébastien. It is the question of the efficiency of data and transfers, which are our daily life, honestly, with the credit card and everything, and also the daily life of financial actors. What can be done in this regard in terms of sustainability, and what do you do about this?
So in terms of data, maybe an information you are not aware, which is what type of volume of data are used through internet. Okay, so let's start by a big number. So 80% of the traffic of internet is video. Voilà. So this is the big number, 80%. Okay, meaning that there is 4 parts on it. Okay, Netflix is 25%. Okay, so for the people that would like to reduce energy consumption, reduce climate change and so on, so you need to switch off Netflix. So it's a first decision you can do today. Okay, 25% is YouTube, Vimeo, and other streamer. Okay, 25% is videos and photos through social media, Facebook, and so on. So you need to plug off. Okay, again, those parts. And the last part, the 25%, is the porn. Voilà. So if you want to be sustainable, you stop social media, you stop Netflix, you stop porn, you stop YouTube, and you save 80% of the bandwidth of internet. Okay, so just to tell you, if all of the people, I think there are 60 people in this call, so if tomorrow you want to change your mindset, if you want to be compliant, this is what you can act. Okay, so just to give you a feeling. So in the real life, what companies are doing, so Worldline is a company making transaction, meaning that when you use your credit card in a shop, if you want to buy a bicycle or if you want to buy some shoes, you are using your credit card and you tap your PIN code, and after you have a nice ticket telling you that the transaction has been activated and you can take the good. Okay, so but what my company is doing is managing this transaction, meaning that the flows of information that is generated after the payment terminal going to my data center, going to the bank, going back to my data center, going back to the bank of the merchant and going back to the terminals is generating CO2 emission. Okay, so you see that it's a huge flow of information, managing a network, managing terminals, managing data center. So what is the way that now all of us need to follow, which is we need to have what we call a life cycle analysis of such process. So here it's a payment transaction, okay, to see what we can do. Okay, first question is when you buy a bicycle or you are buying, I don't know, meat, food, whatever, what is the impact of those transactions in terms of CO2 emission? So here we need to calculate and come to a number, 2 grams, 4 grams, 6 grams, 8 grams, okay? And after this number is identified, what are the areas where we can manage and we can reduce? So in my example, in fact, the main impact will be the tickets that is printed after the transaction. So here, by removing these tickets, we are going to make a lot of saving in terms of CO2 emission, okay? And after, we can interact on the way you are paying. If you are paying with a credit card or if you are paying with your phone, it's not the same impact. So what is in front of us is such analysis, as I described for my perimeter, but that all companies now need to enter, which is when I analyze my life cycle analysis from end to end, what are the impact that I have here? I mentioned CO2 emission, but you can make the same analysis in terms of water, in terms of resources that you are taking in the nature. So you need to know what are your impacts on the environmental, and after set actions to define what you need to decrease, make your KPI and publish. Because at the end, your stakeholder, your employee, okay, your customer, your rating agency or your shareholder are going to ask you, Sebastian, what are you doing with payment transaction? What are you doing, in fact, to reduce your CO2 emission by 20% or 40% on this flow of information? Whatever that in my flow of transaction, I'm using the network of Orange, I'm using the data center of BNP, okay? So it's my duty to put all those people around the table to say to those people, this is the calculation I made regarding the payment industry. This is what the cost we have in terms of environmental impact. So all of us, we need to work together to reduce this impact. Okay, so this is what now we need to engage if we want to be successful in that huge challenge.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very clear. We are running out of time. So maybe we can grab an extra 5 minutes if everybody agrees on that. Jérôme, I don't know if you have one. Yeah, I think one question is reasonable. And then I would like the cheering message maybe of each of you to the audience, because there have been some good news, but also some bit tough news. So maybe there will be something to get us all out of the room with plenty of energy. But Jérôme, one question from the audience, maybe?
Yeah. So one question that was upped by different persons. So it's a question asking if scientists are part of the work groups that were previously mentioned. So there's a reference that to last Climate Change Association report, which states that a massive reduction of consumption is needed to reach the 1.5 degree target. Shouldn't the real question be how to finance a world that works and produce less? Is the
question clear?
But I would say in all the serious task force, you have people with scientific background. often in many fields, because carbon is not going to be the same as biodiversity. Well, climate is not going to be the same as biodiversity, as you know, human health. So of course there is this, and many of those initiatives are based on cooperations with universities, with labs. So I would say the serious ones. So you've understood in our discussions, all methodologies do not have the same value. And of course, we all need to seek for science-based approach. And that's the way the Accord de Paris has been designed, you know, leveraging scientific work on climate. So, so of course, it needs to be at the core of it. But then, you know, what is interesting is that when you leverage science, science is not an exact approach as well, as you can see around us. And what is, I would say, a source of worry is that in climate, things are accelerating, and you know, consequences can be even worse than we were expecting and going faster. But I see that Laurent wants to jump in. But you need the sound. You're shut off. You have been muted.
Can you hear me? Thank you. I'm out of the jail. I mean, I wanted to talk and somebody muted me. So it was a sanction, maybe. Yeah, I mean,
no more democracy 5 minutes before the end.
I mean, yes, we have, I mean, today we have a scientific tool to recognize the emission reduction target of companies, which is called Science-Based Target Initiative. It's today it's today the most robust scientific assessment of emission reduction target for Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. And, you know, we have now 1,100 companies in the process, which are committed. 50% are already approved. And it's not easy for a company to be approved, because there is a scientific committee and it doesn't come the first time, you know, very often there is a back and forth to accept the target. But once the target are accepted, then there is a stamp saying, today, based on this emission reduction target, the company is on 2-degree pathway, and now we're developing the 1.5-degree pathway. And we made something interesting. We made an investor campaign 1 month ago, pooling 140 investors to ask 1,800 companies to become SBT aligned 1.5 degree. And it was a very successful campaign, because since then we have lots of companies now that are in the pipeline, and you know, we're discussing with them to explain them how to do that. Because you know, the investors need to have as much as possible SBT aligned, I mean, company aligned with 1.5 or 2 degrees to be able to select them in their portfolio. The more they have SBT approved or 1.5 degree aligned companies, the easier will be their job to make the stock picking.
And as a matter of fact, Eurazeo is in the process of being approved for its SBT trajectory, and I confirm we're the first in private equity. And we were also a member of the working group to adapt the methodology to private equity. And I confirm the back and forth with the scientific committee. It's not an easy path. You really need to work your methodology. And at the end of the day, so I let you imagine the type of discussion we had internally with the top management of the company. We need to decrease our carbon current budget by over 70%, notwithstanding our growth. So we're going to grow, but our carbon budget is still going to decrease. So it really puts a zoom, you know, on how do you create economic growth and decorrelate this economic growth with your economical footprint, because at the same time you need to change your economical footprint. So there is a need to change models. There is a need for deep transformation.
Sophie, we need to talk.
Thank you.
Definitely.
I think I have my cat behind, asking for some food, sorry. Thank you for that. Your sharing sentence or word to the audience, and then I will let probably Stéphane give the final word for today. And thank you very much for your precious input.
Sophie, Sébastien?
Sophie, you want to take?
Okay, so you know, it's in the evening, and in the evening it's always more difficult to be on the optimist side of the glass. So definitely, guys, the clock is ticking. You can make a difference by the way you consume. If you're a member of this club, you definitely have some jobs where you have some responsibilities. So exert, take this power and do something with it, because Laurent was talking about the absolutely horrifying consequences of global warming. Sébastien was talking about the consequences of COVID. For me, COVID is just a light rehearsal of what is going to happen if we don't act super strongly to stop climate change.
So my word would be to encourage you to go. I put this in the chat, to go and use the environmental rating of funds that we developed called Climetrics, because then you can walk the talk with your own money. You know, when you invest your money for your savings, for your pensions or whatever, we score 20,000 funds. It's free to access, open to public, so you can go on this website and check if the fund you're invested in are well rated. We give a rating system with leaves. 1 leaf is a very bad fund for environment, and 5 leaves, it's a fund that already transitioned strongly toward the low carbon, water efficient and deforestation free, because we take water and forest. So you can walk the talk and say, okay, you go to your banker, you have funds with 2 leaves, very bad. You ask your banker, give me fund with 5 leaves, and then you invest there. I encourage you to do that. Thank you very much.
Okay, so last point on my side. So as we highlighted, there is a lot of changes to be made. But the one that I think you need to keep in mind is that whatever the company are doing, you are the one deciding. And in the example I provided, that means that you need to start how yourself you are going to change. So in the example I took, are you ready to stop Netflix? Are you ready to stop Amazon? Are you ready, in fact, to stop travel? Are you ready, in fact, to reduce your car? So all of those things that myself, I raised the question for a couple of years already. And the only one I succeed to do is stop Netflix, to tell you the truth. For the other, I did not succeed. But what is behind that, and what you need to keep in mind, is that all that we enjoy in our day-to-day life, it's physical pleasure. Okay, what the human being is looking today is just physical pleasure. Unfortunately, physical pleasure is generating CO2 emission. So the challenge that we have in front of us is how can we get pleasure that are without any CO2 emission, and except reading books, okay, and staying at home. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of ways to take pleasure as we know today, and is definitely what we need to invent if we want to survive on that planet.
Agree.
Thank you.
Eat less meat also.
Also, yeah, you're right. Very quick win. Stéphane, if you would like to say a final word. As for me, I want to thank our speakers for their very clear and insightful explanations.
Okay, so at first I would like to thank all the speakers because of the quality of this exchange and the activities and also the mindset. This webinar was the first event of Essec club, and because of the finance subgroup. So thanks to the involvement of Caroline and Jérôme and the precious help of Manon from Maison de Tech. As we will need probably another time to exchange of this huge topic. And thanks for the quality of the exchange, and probably to have the time to answer all the questions. We aim to organize similar event on a quarterly basis to improve our think tank task. So I would to conclude and by welcoming in the club all the participants and to improve one side the do mindset, as you have heard and you have seen in your company as manager. To challenge the model, not only to switch off or turn off thing, but find some models. I think that schools as the Nine Business School or Essec Business School have the skills to challenge it and make our business more accountable. So to conclude, at least I would like to share with you the information for March 21. We will show you a link with this fund. And for us, finance was the ground of the topics, but the next topic will be more the approach in energy business and sustainability. So thank you for your time. Thank you for this moment. I share with you the link with our LinkedIn land page, but also the Essec alumni land page. I invite you to take contact with us. We will continue to exchange, and I propose to get your question, and after all, try to answer as much as possible. And let's keep in touch soon for the next event. And one more time, thank you for this moment. It was very personally appreciate a lot this moment with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
On a perdu tout le monde? Ouais, tout le monde est parti. Ouais.
Bah, c'est super.
Bon, bah, c'était bien, non?
Moi, j'ai trouvé ça très bien. Je sais pas, enfin, moi, je sais pas vous, mais moi, j'ai passé un super moment.
Ouais, je pense qu'il y a eu pas mal d'interactions, donc c'est plutôt, je pense que c'était plutôt pas mal pour ça, ouais.
Ouais. Et après, il faut arriver à gérer. C'est vrai qu'il va falloir un autre moment. Peut-être que bah, c'est à organiser, hein, mais je pense que le sujet est tellement vaste et les questions, il y en a tellement que ça mérite de continuer.
Ouais.
Oui, de mon côté, les questions, j'étais un peu dépassé. Il y avait plein de très bonnes questions. Et voilà, après coup, je me dis que j'aurais dû mieux choisir. Mais bon,
Non, mais dans
voilà.
le timing, tu peux pas
C'est
faire
pas
mieux pour une
évident.
heure.
Voilà,
Ouais,
voilà.
dans le timing, là.
Moi, j'en fais sur 1h30, j'ai un seul speaker. Tu
Ouais,
vois,
C'est ça.
donc,
ouais.
donc là,
T'es obligé
j'ai
de.
35, 40 personnes, t'en as 60, t'as 3 speakers, donc si tu veux, c'est compliqué. Hein.
Mais ouais, franchement, c'était super intéressant, hein. Vraiment, il y a eu de la matière. Je pense que ça s'est très bien passé. A priori, les retours sont positifs aussi.
Ouais.
Ouais, ce que je comprends, ouais.
Donc, belle expérience.
Bon, bah, c'est bien.
Ouais, il y aura sans doute des points, tu vois, dans les questions qu'on pourra garder pour des sessions plus focus avec l'un de nos speakers à chaque fois et sur vraiment les thèmes qui lui sont propres.
Ouais. Ouais, et puis
On pourra y revenir.
au niveau des lessons learned aussi, clairement on avait trop de questions. On a vraiment été
Ouais, mais il vaut mieux trop de
short en
questions
temps.
parce qu'en fait, tu sais, les gens, ils les lisent.
Oui, voilà,
ils
tu
posent la
sélectionnes
question,
après.
Ouais, c'est vrai. Ouais.
Moi,
Ouais.
c'est pas grave. T'as pas vos questions à répondre à tout. Voilà. Donc après, on fait du pick-up et tout ça. Et puis, il y en a sur lesquels tu peux
Oui, parce que
donc,
vous avez fait vos propres enchaînements, en fait, hein, tous les trois. Enfin, il y a certaines choses, on voyait que ça avançait sur la question suivante tout seul, quoi.
donc non, je pense que c'est bien. Voilà.
Euh,
Après, ce que tu peux faire, c'est envoyer un petit mail à chacun, un sondage, et puis leur demander si